What's up, guys? Tim Little, Matt Allen. Welcome back to TacticalBassin, and welcome back video number 2 in our spring buyer's guide series. Today we are covering the hottest trends in bass fishing coming from Japan.
The JDM market, also known as the Japanese domestic market, is one of the largest influences on U.S. bass fishing. Historically, there are basically two places that most bass fishing trends come from, especially the finesse trends. And that would be the West Coast of the United States and Japan. All of your largest trends have historically come from those two places. So today what we are covering is some of the hottest trends coming out of Japan today. We notice, unique trends, unique baits versus unique trends. Some things are new styles of bait that the U.S. has never had before. Other things is just trends in the market that suddenly seem to be shifting. And if you keep an eye or you keep a pulse on what's going on in Japan, you can get a head start on what is happening here. So we've got 5 different trends that are very clearly going on right now, and we wanted to cover some of the hottest baits within those trends. You want to kick us off?
Sure. One of the largest trends in the last couple years are appendages, right? Baits that have a lot of appendages. The dice. You guys seen these? You guys heard about these? I did a full in-depth video on this technique. I don't know, in the fall, I believe. Yeah. But basically, your dice style bait, a cube bait with a bunch of appendages, a lot of movement. And for Matt and I, we see a lot of bass fishing lures, we see a lot of trends and stuff, but this is the one that I personally didn't get. I didn't understand. I understood there's a lot of movement to it, but it wasn't until we saw some of these things rigged underwater on a drop shot that like the light bulb went off, and we really got to see the movement. We got to see how this thing falls, how it shimmies and shakes, the appendages moving. But the OSP dice, that guy right there is a huge trend. The dice is a huge trend coming out of Japan, and it's caught a lot of fish for us. Once we kind of learned what we were doing, playing around with it, it works extremely well. But again, it's not your traditional looking bait, and that's one of the main things from Japan. West Coast, California, Arizona, those clear water lakes. Japan, typically clear water, high pressure fisheries, and that's where a lot of these techniques come from. Trying to be different, as you can see, trying to be a lot different than your favorite stick style baits. But that guy right there works extremely well, fishing it on a drop shot, a light wire drop shot hook, or you can get little screw lock weights and screw them into the bottom and fish it almost like a Nico rig or a wacky rig. But that is an awesome little finesse bait right there, and the dice deal is a big deal here in the States now.
Yeah, that dice trend is not going away, and that's why we wanted to take the time to cover it for you today, because there are a lot of JDM trends that come to the US that don't stick, right? There are trends that come and they're here for the rest of our lives. There are trends that just come and go because the Japanese market moves much faster than the US market. There are a lot of adaptations. So where the US slowly over years will make changes, the Japanese market is launching whole new concepts every year, if not multiple times a year. So it's hard. If you were going to track the JDM market and you wanted to be in front of every trend, you would be broke because there's that many trends. But when a trend is going to stick, when it is crushing fish all over the US in finesse fisheries, it's time to make sure that you guys know about it, that you understand how to do it, and that it is something that is coming to your lake if it hasn't already happened all around you. That dice rubber is just a fish catcher. It's just one of those baits that has become like a guy is going to have a chatterbait, like he is going to have a Senko. Right? Yes. On a lot of finesse fisheries over the last year, the dice has become another one of those must-have baits on the deck of the boat. That brings us to this guy right here. No, this is not a koosh ball. even though that's exactly what it looks like. This is from Hideup, and this bait is called the Koike. We've got two sizes. This is the 17 millimeter, that's the little guy. And then the big one, I left him in the box because it's easier to hold the thing in the box. That is called the full cast. The Koike in the Japanese market is actually the bait behind this entire trend. So in the US market, the OSP dice took off first. But in the Japanese market, that Hideup Koike was the bait that kicked off the whole trend. It just took a long time for that bait to get to the US. These baits are widely available now, and this is the bait that set the standard in this category. You can fish them a lot of different ways, but like Tim said, the ways that we see the most action when we start comparing underwater, because if we don't understand a new trend, the first place we're going is underwater. We want to analyze what that thing actually looks like. And there is no question that you get the best action out of the baits, either suspended on a drop shot or on like a Jika or Tokyo rig. So a weighted rig, but where that bait is still separated from that weight and it can flow in the water. That is where the best action comes from with those baits.
All right, keeping up with the appendage trend, we're going to talk about the Koike shrimp. So a lot like the koosh ball over here. This is more of a stick bait style body with all of the appendages out the side and two longer tails. This thing is an awesome bait, one to drop shot like Matt said, but this one has some weight to it, so you can fish it weightless on a Texas rig or a weightless rig and fish it like your favorite stick bait style bait. But that guy right there, again, lots of appendages, lots of movement, subtle rod tip shakes, gives this thing a ton of action, and the fish just haven't seen it. It's just something that
it's just different.
It just different, right?
Yep. One thing that I'll add is, because you guys aren't quite up close, now we will link all of this in the video description. In the order that we're talking about each bait, if you open the description below the video, we'll link them straight to Tackle Warehouse where you can see them. So you can see up close photos to understand what we're talking about. You can see a koosh ball from a mile away,
right?
But some of these, like this little guy, you're gonna struggle to see that. So the dice rubber is an elastomer type bait with skirting material through it. All the rest of these are poured appendages. They are poured as part of the bait. They are not added after the fact. This is the last bait or group of baits that are in this category that I want to talk about. This is one that we have been fishing for almost a year now. These are made by Raid, and this is called the two-way. Now, Raid makes a one-way, which is a dice style bait. It's an excellent bait, but the two-way is fascinating to me. This thing, I brought the big one. They make it in a run of sizes. There's 4 or 5 sizes. This is the smallest. This is the largest. I brought the big one so that you guys could actually see it. Oh, it's gonna stink. Here we go, here we go. This bait is bulbous on both ends and then small in the middle. There's a ball in the middle. The best way that I have found to rig this bait is a wacky drop shot. So each end has all of the appendages, and then the middle is thinner. And when you put a wacky hook through the middle and you float this thing in the water and all of the appendages start swimming, it essentially looks like a centipede is what it looks like in your hand. But that bait, through the different sizes, the 3 smallest sizes are my personal favorite. They come in a full range of amazing colors. I find a lot of the Japanese baits, I'll look through all the colors and there's like 1 or 2 I'm willing to throw. When I got to this Raid two-way, there's only 1 or 2 that don't look amazing to me. They come in a bunch of really good colors, and the way that thing flows when you wacky rig it, where both sides are working, that is an incredible bait. And it is only a matter of time before something major is won on that bait and that train just starts rolling. And if you want to get in front of that trend, that's the Raid two-way. You heard about it. We've been catching them on it. That thing is no joke.
Isn't it crazy what bass will eat?
It's
like,
wild.
What is that supposed to even mimic?
Right.
It's just, I mean, what is that? I mean, we're eating sea urchins now? Like, it's, But bass, they're predatory game fish, and they just eat stuff that moves. All right, next category, we're talking strolling baits. If you've been living under a rock, you probably haven't heard about the...
if you've been under a rock, you still heard.
Yeah, probably. The Sakamata shad by Depths. This is by far, at least it was the first bait to catch over here in the States for strolling. Mid-strolling, hover strolling, any of the strolling techniques. That Depths Sakamata shad, I don't want to open these up, but really soft, a ton of movement. So when you put this paired up with either a light head or a heavier head, depending on where you want to fish in the water column, giving that rod tip a twitch, that whole bait shimmies. It's a winged style bait. So again, if you click the link down below, you can look at the pictures. On the cheeks of the bait has a wing kind of system on it. You'll see what I'm talking about. But it sits really natural, really horizontal in the water. And as you're covering in the bigger sizes, as you start speeding up those handle turns on your reel, that tail starts kicking and swimming. But we have caught some giant fish on this guy right here. Comes in a bunch of sizes: 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch, 8, like big sizes. But the Sakamata shad, if you're new to the JDM stuff, this is probably the hottest bait on the market as far as the strolling trend, and they're hard to find, but when you can get them because they work really well.
So the strolling trend is here to stay. The jig and minnow, if you will. That's like the US generalized term for it. That is here to stay, right? You've seen the damage it's done in tournaments. You've seen what it's done on your local lakes. Guys catch giants on them everywhere. And it's not just a forward-facing sonar thing. It pairs up amazing to forward-facing sonar. That's what you see in tournaments. But in the real world, you can be a guy walking the shore, strolling, fish clobber that thing. It is a trend that you want to take advantage of. We wanted to make sure that we pointed out a few more of the really good baits that are coming over from Japan. Again, from Raid, there's a bait called a fish roller. I think the first time we caught them on this bait in a video was like 2.5 years ago. The fish roller was one of the first baits to come over. Smaller profiled. It's sort of a boxy, like squared sides. It rolls really well when you're strolling, and it's just a fish catcher. They also make the super fish roller, and they make it in a variety of the larger sizes. The fish roller is just one of those baits that has proven itself. It catches a pile of fish. It is worth investing in. And again, there are a lot of Japanese baits that are really hard to get, but some of them have now come to the US with enough stock that you can actually get your hands on some of them. These go in and out of stock, just like the Sakamata.
A lot of these.
They'll go in and out, but when they're in stock and you can get them, they are fish catchers.
A lot of these you can actually back order too, so, and you'll get them when they come in. All right, last bait in this category. This is the BR fish by Duo Realis. Now, this is kind of a system. So this is the bait itself, but the head, we don't have the heads here, but the head, it's a weighted jig head that has the wings on the head itself. It's a two-part system. So the head and then the bait. Now, this bait is completely different than the other baits in the strolling category, right? That strolling category. This is a real side to side, almost like a jerkbait style.
Yeah, it's like an underwater spook.
Yeah, it's side to side, and when you pop it, it's dancing side to side to side, and it is a really unique action and a proven fish catcher. So we wanted to make sure we included that in this set or this category of baits. But the BR fish by Duo is an awesome little technique. Again, you fish it a lot like this, same rod, same gear, but if you just do, instead of doing little shimmies, little shakes and reels, you do the pops. This thing starts dancing all over the place, and these fish just go ballistic for these things.
It's like a cross between like an underwater spook or like a soft ice jig.
Yeah,
right. That thing is just dancing. That's one of the neat things about that JDM market is they're moving so quickly that over here, strolling is new. 10 different companies are trying to come out with a winged, maybe 50 different companies trying to come out with a winged head bait to put up against the Sakamata shad, right? That's what we're doing over here.
They're already turned the page.
Over there, they're over there with these baits that'll walk the dog underwater. They're adapting very quickly. All right, the next trend that we see, and this is not a new trend, but we want to point it out for you, in the US market, a spinnerbait is a staple, right? Anyone who takes their bass fishing seriously has got a stockpile of spinnerbaits. It's just one of those things that works. Same thing in Japan, but a trend that we always see coming over from Japan is that finessier thing, right? They have some very difficult fisheries, not all of their fisheries. We see other trends come from them too. We'll get to some of that. But a lot of these finesse fisheries require baits to be really fine-tuned. And one of the things that we see come over from Japan is these fine wire finesse type spinnerbaits. So lighter wire means more vibration. Smaller blades means two things. It means you can fish them deeper, and it means you can fish them faster. And faster is what I think is the key. Day in and day out, we catch more fish on finesse spinnerbaits than we do full-size spinnerbaits. They just get bit more often, that downsized profile. So I've got two of them here for you as just great examples. From Nori's, we have the deeper range. And then from Megabass, we have the SV3. This is one of our all-time favorite spinnerbaits. This is not new, but it is just a fish catcher. It is unbelievable how well that bait works. But there are a variety of options coming over from Japan that are these lighter wire, smaller hooked, smaller blades, tighter vibration baits that will catch them when your traditional full-size spinnerbaits, big painted blades, stop working.
Yeah, Matt hit the nail on the head. You know, when we're talking about the JDM stuff, the Japanese side of lure design, they have everything so fine-tuned and everything is so nichey for different bites and stuff. So everything, one thing you know when you buy a Japanese, for the most part, when you buy a Japanese product, the paint color is going to be dialed, the terminal, the stuff on the bait is going to be dialed, the action is going to be dialed. It might have a specific action that you may or may not like, but there's a reason for it for them. Right. Over here, like, hey, just give me a black and blue jig, I'm going to go flip a jig. But here they have a specific thing for everything. So topwater is not traditionally a technique that you think about when you think about Japan or Japanese lure design, but we got a couple of topwaters for you. This guy right here, this thing is beautiful. This is the Tomos glide. This is the 10-inch. Comes in two different sizes, the 8 and the 10-inch. This is not a glide at all. I guess it's a
gliding
topwater bait, a big walking style bait. But guys, I don't think this video or pictures do this bait any justice. The foil on this, the glitter, I mean, this looks like a real trout. This is the 10-inch, but again, baits coming from overseas, they're dialed, right? They've played around with the float, the sink rates, the float rates, the weights with the different hooks. Now this bait specifically, we left the hooks off it because it does not come with rings or hooks.
You're gonna need to add all that yourself.
It's just the bait itself. But guys, this is beautiful. It looks like a real rainbow trout. Again, a topwater walking style bait. That thing is beautiful.
Yeah, there's no question when we're talking about the Japanese market as a whole. Now, there are a lot of big baits that come from Japan, but as a whole, a lot of those finesse trends come. But over the last year, we've noticed this trend, and I'll let you finish them up.
Okay.
But we've noticed this trend of large topwaters coming out of Japan. Be that a great big Tomos, big, hard-bodied, solid, no rattle, big walk the dog bait, or more of your traditional baits, but oversized topwaters coming out of Japan. And I think that probably means something. We're probably going to see that trend kick back off in the US again.
Yeah, and we've seen it through the years. I mean, living on Clear Lake, we saw the transition from smaller glide baits to medium size to giant glide baits and then back down to smaller size.
Yep.
So I could see their fish with as much pressure as they get having to throw some 10 and 12-inch baits. We see the giant glide baits they make by. So anyways, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but two more baits here for you from Tackle. We have the BD, the big dog, and the slash kicker. Two completely different style baits. This is more of your traditional walk the dog style. Real loud, try and shake this. Real loud. Tackle has a lot of, they have some really cool topwater baits, a whole line, but this is a perfect size. It's a little bit larger than like your traditional spook style baits. But that's the BD, like I said. So if you're a guy that wants to target larger fish or striper, just have a bait that has a little bit bigger presence or profile in the water, that is awesome. And then the slash kicker over here, this is more of like your pencil popper style bait. A real, the rear end of the bait sits in the water, and it's a real slashy.
It's very violent.
It's a real wide, quick, side to side action. It's not a real gliding bait like these two. It's a so it's a real violent, I like that word, a real violent topwater, and it can entice. I mean, we've caught some giant spots on this thing. It can entice fish to eat when other topwaters won't pull the fish. One instance I can think of, bait balls, right? We've all seen those fish on bait balls, and you have to get their attention. If you're trying to catch them on topwater, you need to throw a bait that gets their attention. This is the bait. If you get this thing walking and slashing and spitting like it does, you can pull some of those big fish off of that bait ball and look up and catch them on topwater. It's really, really cool. But those are 3 awesome baits from Japan that work here over here in the States. So really impressed with those guys.
All right, one more trend. We'll wrap it up with the 5th trend that we're seeing, and that is those downsized swim baits. We've seen the giant baits, we've seen mid-sized baits. We're back to seeing a lot of those smaller offerings as well. This is a recent release in the US from Megabass. We all know the mag draft. This is now a 5-inch size of the mag draft. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a small release of 5-inch mag draft in the US, and some of our friends got hands on. We never even got one, right? But we had some buddies that just creamed them on that thing. This is the new 5-inch mag draft, and it has had major upgrades since that soft launch or limited run that was done. Complete difference in the harness, adjustments in the swim. This 5-inch mag draft is a very universal bait. It's got that sweet mag draft speed that you're used to, where you can just get that thing going and you get that amazing head rock, you get that body wobble, that tail kick, just in a downsized package, but you can do more with it as well. It's got a wider range in its sweet spot. That 5-inch mag draft, if you want to catch swim bait fish, you want to draw fish out of cover, you want to pull fish up, there is just something about a mag draft and how it moves that pulls fish, even in that downsized profile. The other benefit of the 5-inch is that it's coming in a bunch of colors that you cannot get in the 6-inch, and some of them look really, really good. They did an awesome job with that bait.
One thing you can't tell, that thing, even though it's only an inch small, excuse me, an inch smaller than the 6-inch, it's considerably smaller than the 6-inch. A lot.
Yeah, the whole body size
shrunk down. All right, next bait up I want to talk to you guys about. This is the OSP, the HP fish. I'm going to pull one of these out so you guys can see this. Now, for the most part, we've all thrown Kitex, we've thrown our favorite finesse swim baits, soft finesse swim baits. This is the first one I've seen that comes with the vortex style, the wedge style tail, right? Kitex, all of your favorite paddle tail swim baits have that same action. This guy right here has a flat back, and it has that wedge style tail, which is a completely different action than we've seen in that finesse size swim bait. So these guys work extremely well as well.
All right, the last one in this video, and then we will wrap up our JDM buyer's guide, is this bait right here from Realis. This is called the Snappy Crappie, and this bait is your traditional multi-joint type swim bait. So throw it out, slow sinking bait. I'm adjusting my tail hook here as I'm playing with it. This bait is going to swim really well on a high-speed retrieve. You can dance it and work it and pop it and twitch it, get all sorts of motion out of it. But what makes this a standout to me is the tail that I'm sitting over here fiddling with. It's got an elastomer tail on it. So it is a soft, collapsible tail. So a multi-joint bait, typically what you've got is either 2 hooks that are completely exposed or a horrible hookup ratio. Those are sort of the two things that I have found. Generally, if they try to hide that back hook, they don't hook up well. The Snappy crappie is really interesting to me because you can burn it, you can twitch it, pop it, work it, but that rear hook is completely hidden inside of that elastomer tail. But when you set the hook, again, it's elastomer, it's not a hard material, so it collapses and it gets out of the way and you can stick those fish. So I think that is really neat that you've got that full size profile, you've got two hooks on it, but that back hook is totally hidden within that tail. I just think that is a neat innovation, and it's a good example of how that JDM market will tend to fine tune and tweak things and dial them in.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've all seen a bunch of hard baits that have tail hooks, but it's with a hard tail, and that hard tail gets in the way of that. When that
Just
fish
blocks
eats that bait, it blocks that rear hook to hook up. But guys, these are some of the hottest trends in bass fishing coming from Japan. Like Matt talked about, maybe by the time this video comes out, they'll be obsolete, but they're always tinkering, they're always tweaking things, and we've had a ton of success with these guys right here. But we'll link everything down below in the video description, and then yeah, tomorrow, these videos are coming 7 days a week. We have 7 videos for you. So what do we got for tomorrow?
Tomorrow, we are completely shifting gears. We're going away from the JDM trends, and we are talking hard baits. So springtime bass fishing, hard baits are a major part of the game. The next day, a little spoiler alert, we're talking soft baits, but we're talking major baits in each of the hard bait categories that we rely on in the springtime and that you can trust. If you're looking for a bait in that category, we'll show you exactly what we use. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you tomorrow.